Champagne isn't just wine with bubbles. Real champagne is AOC-protected, made only in northeastern France using the traditional method, tirage, second fermentation in bottle, long lees aging, remoage, dégorgement, and finally dosage that defines whether it's brut, extra brut, or demi-sec. Non-vintage bottles must age at least 15 months, vintage at least 36. And yet, a shocking number of famous bottles coast on branding alone. In the US, champagne has become shorthand for luxury, success, and celebration, which means many houses sell image first, liquid second. So today, we're counting down 8 champagnes that are mostly marketing, not magic, and later 2 that actually earn their reputation. The test is simple: taste, balance, depth, celebration factor, and whether you'd pour a second glass on purpose. Let's start at the bottom. Number 10. Nicolas Feuillatte Brut Réservé. Nicolas Feuillatte exists in a very specific lane of American champagne culture. It's the bottle people reach for when they want something that technically says champagne without committing emotionally, financially, or intellectually. You see it at catered events, hotel brunches, corporate celebrations, places where the goal isn't delight, it's risk management. In the glass, the wine behaves exactly the way its reputation suggests. The bubbles are polite, the aromas are light, green apple, faint citrus peel, a whisper of bread dough that never quite develops into anything richer. Nothing clashes, nothing surprises. The acidity is restrained, the texture is thin but clean, and the finish exits almost before you realize it arrived. At first sip, this can feel reassuring. There's a moment where you think, okay, this works. But champagne is not meant to merely function. It's meant to open up as it warms, to reward attention, to make you slow down just a little. Feuillatte doesn't do that. As the glass sits, nothing new emerges. The wine doesn't evolve, it simply fades. That's where the second glass question answers itself quietly. You don't refuse another pour, but you don't seek it out either. It's the champagne equivalent of background music, present, unobtrusive, and forgotten the moment it stops. Nicolas Feuillatte ranks last not because it fails technically, but because it never aspires to be memorable. And at this price point, memorability matters. Number 9. Moët Chandon Brut Impérial. Moët Chandon might be the most successful champagne brand ever created. Not because it's the best tasting bottle in the region, but because it has mastered symbolism. In the US, Moët isn't ordered for flavor, it's ordered for what it signals: success, arrival, celebration without explanation. Pour it and the wine immediately feels friendly. Soft bubbles, ripe apple and pear, a gentle sweetness cushioned by moderate acidity. Everything is smooth. Everything is controlled. This champagne has been engineered to work in as many environments as possible, from nightclubs to weddings to New Year's Eve living rooms. But that universal appeal comes with a trade-off. The wine rarely deepens as you drink it. The mid-palate is pleasant but restrained, and the finish tends to fall away instead of unfolding. There's no tension pulling you back for another contemplative sip. It simply resets, waiting for the next toast. What's fascinating about Moët is that the first glass almost always lands well. It feels celebratory. It feels right. But by the time you're halfway through, you realize the experience hasn't changed. The wine doesn't challenge you, surprise you, or reward attention. It stays exactly where it started. And that's when the second glass becomes automatic rather than intentional. You drink it because it's there, not because you're chasing something it promised earlier. Moët lands at number 9 because it's champagne as branding perfection. But branding perfection isn't the same as drinking pleasure. Number 8. Piper-Heidsieck Sauvet Brut. Piper-Heidsieck walks into the room with confidence. The red label, the motorsport associations, the awards. Everything about it suggests energy and sharpness. This is champagne that wants to feel active, modern, and assertive. On the palate, that intention is immediately clear. The acidity leads the experience, pushing citrus, green apple, and mineral notes front and center. The bubbles are lively, the structure feels upright, and the wine announces itself with urgency rather than subtlety. For some drinkers, that edge reads as sophistication. It feels crisp, focused, serious. But as the glass settles, a problem emerges. The tension never quite resolves. The wine stays sharp without developing enough mid-palate weight to balance it. The Lise character is there, but restrained, offering structure without richness. This creates a champagne that commands attention early, then slowly exhausts it. The first glass feels energetic and precise. The second glass starts to feel repetitive. You're no longer discovering anything, you're simply re-experiencing the same sharp angles. Piper-Heidsieck isn't flawed, it's just narrowly styled. It's champagne built to impress quickly rather than linger meaningfully. At US prices, that narrowness becomes more noticeable, especially when other bottles offer both brightness and depth in the same range. It ranks 8th because it brings intensity without generosity. And champagne, even when crisp, should still feel welcoming enough to invite you back. #7. Taittinger Brut la Française. Taittinger sells restraint as a virtue. Chardonnay-driven blends, pale colour, fine bubbles, everything about Brut la Française suggests elegance over impact. And at first, it delivers exactly that. The opening sip is graceful. Citrus zest, white flowers, subtle toast, a light, creamy texture that feels refined rather than indulgent. The wine moves softly across the palate, never raising its voice, never pushing too hard. But as the glass warms, something important becomes clear. The wine doesn't build momentum. The flavours remain delicate, the structure stays light, and the finish fades sooner than you expect. There's precision here, but not enough substance to anchor it. This is champagne that performs beautifully in the first act, then quietly steps aside. It doesn't collapse, it simply doesn't expand. For drinkers who value subtlety above all else, that can be appealing. For others, especially at its common US price point, it feels like elegance without payoff. The second glass question becomes a matter of mood rather than desire. You'll accept another pour, but you're unlikely to crave it. There's no pull, no sense that the wine is about to reveal something new if you give it more time. Taittinger ranks 7th because it executes finesse cleanly, but finesse alone isn't enough. Champagne should feel alive over the course of the bottle, not just beautiful in its opening moments. Number 6. Perrier-Jouët Grand Brut. Perrier-Jouët is one of those champagnes that seduces you before you ever taste it. The bottle is elegant. The floral branding signals refinement. In the US, it's often positioned as the artsy luxury option, something you order when you want to look cultured rather than flashy. The wine itself opens gracefully. There's brightness right away, citrus peel, green apple, a light herbal note, and a mousse that feels soft rather than aggressive. The first few sips feel composed and intentional, like the wine knows exactly how it wants to present itself. But as the glass settles, a subtle imbalance appears. The wine leans heavily on freshness while holding back depth. There's sweetness cushioning the acidity, yet not enough textural weight to carry the flavors forward. The mid-palate feels narrower than the presentation promises, and the finish retreats earlier than you expect from a bottle wearing this level of prestige. What makes Perrier-Jouët tricky is that it never actually disappoints. It just under-delivers relative to its reputation and price. You keep waiting for the moment where everything clicks into place, where the wine opens up and rewards patience. Instead, it stays polite, controlled, slightly distant. By the time the glass is empty, the question of another pour becomes revealing. You wouldn't turn it down, but you also wouldn't reach for it instinctively if something else were on the table. The excitement plateaus early, and the experience doesn't evolve enough to pull you deeper into the bottle. Perrier-Jouët ranks 6th because it sells elegance exceptionally well. But elegance alone doesn't justify the premium when the drinking experience never fully blooms. Number 5. Veuve Clicquot Yellow Label. Veuve Clicquot Yellow Label might be the most recognizable champagne bottle in America. The color alone does half the work. It's the default upgrade, the safe luxury pick, the bottle people grab when they want to signal celebration without explanation. And to be fair, Veuve delivers a consistent experience. The wine is bold, structured, and unmistakable. Ripe fruit, toasted notes, a firm backbone. This is champagne that announces itself clearly from the first sip. It doesn't disappear into the background the way softer styles can. But consistency cuts both ways. Veuve's signature profile rarely changes, and over time, that familiarity starts to feel limiting. The dosage softens the edges, the richness leans slightly heavy, and the wine can feel more engineered than expressive. It's powerful but predictable. The first glass often feels satisfying, even impressive. It has presence. It feels like champagne that belongs at a celebration. But as you move deeper into the bottle, the weight starts to accumulate. The wine doesn't lighten or reveal new layers. It repeats itself. That repetition matters. Champagne that truly excels should feel like it's opening up as the evening goes on, not closing in. With Veuve, the second glass becomes a test of tolerance rather than curiosity. You're no longer discovering, you're committing. Veuve Clicquot lands at number 5 because it succeeds as a brand and a symbol. But its ubiquity has exposed its limitations. It's not bad champagne, it's champagne that's been outpaced by quieter bottles doing more interesting work for the same money. Number 4. Dom Pérignon. Dom Pérignon exists in a different psychological category than most champagnes. You don't just buy it, you decide to buy it. It's associated with milestones, once-in-a-lifetime nights, moments meant to feel permanent. The expectation arrives long before the cork comes out. And the wine itself is undeniably refined. It's layered, controlled, and meticulously constructed. Flavors emerge gradually. Stone fruit, citrus oil, subtle toast, mineral tension, all arranged with precision. The texture is seamless. The finish stretches elegantly, evolving instead of fading. So why is it this low? Value. Dom Pérignon is almost always judged against its own mythology. And while it delivers excellence, the experience rarely scales proportionally with the price. You're paying not just for craftsmanship, but for narrative, legacy, and the emotional weight attached to the name. The first glass is impressive. The second confirms the quality. But by the third, something becomes clear. You're not being surprised anymore. The wine is flawless, but also tightly controlled. It doesn't wander. It doesn't misbehave. It doesn't reveal unexpected dimensions as the bottle opens. That restraint is intentional and admirable, but it can also feel distant. Dom Pérignon feels more perfect than soulful. You respect it deeply, yet the urge to keep pouring comes more from obligation to the moment than desire for the wine itself. Dom ranks fourth because it represents prestige executed correctly, but at a cost that often exceeds the emotional return in the glass. Number 3. Ace of Spades, Armand de Brignac Brut Gold. Ace of Spades doesn't whisper luxury, it shouts it. The weight of the bottle, the metallic finish, the visual dominance. Everything about it is designed to command attention before it's even opened. In American culture, this is champagne as spectacle. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The wine inside is actually good. It's rich, creamy, layered, and far more serious than critics of the brand want to admit. There's real depth here. Ripe fruit, texture, length, and polish that many hype-driven bottles never bother developing. But the price changes the conversation entirely. At its cost, every sip invites comparison. And that's where Ace of Spades struggles. The wine is luxurious, but not uniquely so. The difference between this and bottles costing a third of the price isn't proportional to the gap on the receipt. The first glass feels indulgent. The second still delivers pleasure. But at some point, your attention drifts away from the wine and back to the object, the bottle, the moment, the performance of drinking it. The experience becomes about presence rather than progression. Ace of Spades ranks third because it delivers quality while charging heavily for the theatre. You remember ordering it. You remember carrying it. You remember the room reacting. But when the night ends, the taste itself isn't always what lingers the longest. And at this level, lingering matters. Number 2. Bollinger Special Cuvée. Bollinger Special Cuvée is where this countdown starts to change tone. Up to this point, we've been talking about compromise. branding outweighing flavour, reputation outrunning the liquid. Bollinger feels different almost immediately, because it isn't trying to charm you quickly. It's trying to earn trust. From the first pour, the wine carries weight. The mousse is tighter, more deliberate. Aromas lean toward baked apple, toasted brioche, roasted nuts, and a faint savoury edge that hints at extended lees aging and a Pinot Noir-driven blend. This is champagne that doesn't rush the experience. It settles in. What sets Bollinger apart is its structure. The mid-palate has density without heaviness, richness without sweetness, doing the lifting. There's grip here, the kind that makes the wine feel substantial rather than decorative. As the glass warms, new layers show up instead of fading away. The fruit deepens, the texture broadens, and the finish stretches longer with each sip. And this is where the second glass becomes instinctive. Not polite, not automatic, intentional. You don't pour again because the flute is empty. You pour because the wine feels like it's still opening up, still holding something back. In the US market, Bollinger is often priced alongside much louder brands. Yet it quietly outperforms them on complexity alone. It doesn't rely on sweetness, spectacle, or nostalgia. It relies on balance, patience, and a house style that refuses to dilute itself for mass appeal. Bollinger ranks second because it delivers what champagne promises at its best: depth, confidence, and a sense that the bottle is part of the evening, not just the backdrop. Number 1. Louis Roederer. Louis Roederer earns the top spot not by being flashy, but by being unapologetically precise. This is champagne made by people who care less about status signalling and more about how the wine behaves from the first sip to the last drop in the bottle. The collection series represents Roederer's modern vision of non-vintage champagne, built with reserve wines, long lees aging, and obsessive blending. In the glass, the effect is immediate. The wine feels composed. Fruit, acidity, texture, and mineral tension move together rather than competing for attention. There's clarity here that's hard to fake. Citrus and orchard fruit arrive cleanly, followed by subtle creaminess, toasted notes, and a mineral spine that keeps everything upright. Nothing feels excessive, nothing feels missing. Each sip feels intentional, like the wine was designed to be revisited rather than consumed quickly. As the bottle opens, the experience evolves. The texture broadens, the aromatics deepen, and the finish grows more confident instead of softer. This is champagne that rewards time, not just the first impression. The second glass doesn't feel like a decision, it feels inevitable. You're not chasing bubbles or celebration anymore, you're engaged with the wine itself. And that's rare at this price point, especially in the US, where so many bottles trade substance for spectacle. Louis Roederer ranks number 1 because it delivers the rarest luxury of all: consistency without boredom. It doesn't just live up to its reputation, it justifies it, quietly, glass after glass. Champagne should reward curiosity, not just labels. Some bottles sell for status, Others sell experience. Now you know the difference. If this list saved you money or started an argument, drop your pick in the comments and subscribe for more rankings that cut through the hype.